In these videos, we're going to be stepping through setting up a very basic Azure pipeline. The first step will be establishing a Git repository in the Azure project. Of course, we'll need to create a local repository in TestComplete, and then we'll push that repository up to our Azure project. Secondly, we'll set up an interactive self-hosted Azure agent pool, which will run our test pipelines once we're done creating them. And then finally, we'll create and execute a very simple Azure pipeline. So in this video, I'm going to take this project suite, the Veteran Outreach Suite. I'm going to save it to a local repository. Then I'm going to take that repository and go to the Veteran Outreach project that I've set up in Azure DevOps and add that repository to the repository of the Azure project. So the first thing I need to do is take this project suite and using my source control command for creating a local repository, which I'm going to use off of my menu of source control objects. I do have to have source control set up. If you go to the options menu, you'll see that I have the Git plugin as well as Tortoise Git selected for this feature. These commands are going to be relative to having these in. If you're going to use the bash commands or plain Git commands, that's okay, but this will be centered around the Git plugin with Tortoise Git extensions. So in this case, I select create, and it says that I need to save my work. I save my work, and I'm going to use the project suite path, say OK. And then shortly the project will be, local project repository will be created. Now that the local repository has been created, you see that I have little plus symbols next to each of the objects within my project. I will commit. Now I could use the tools off the option bar, or I could right click and choose source control options here. In this case, I'm going to select commit. And the Tortoise Git dialog for commit is shown. I'm going to say initial check-in and set the author date and set the author. This is helpful when looking through the history of check-ins. Then I'm going to select commit. And as you can see, the little plus symbols change to green check marks, so my project has been committed locally. Now that the project has been committed locally, I want to push my project up to my Veteran Outreach project in Azure DevOps. And there's a fairly simple way to do that. If you notice, I have the clone to your computer option shown here. And I'm going to select copy clone URL to the clipboard to put that as the first item in my clipboard. Then I'm going to return to TestComplete. And in this case, I'm going to select the push command. Again, I can choose various ways to get to source control. I'm going to choose the main menu file and find push. I could just as well have brought this up via the toolbar, but in this case, I'm going to select this, and you'll notice the remote is currently empty. I'm going to select manage. And when I go to the manage screen, I'm going to paste the URL that I copied through Azure into both the URL and push URL fields. Click apply and OK, and we're good to go. So push all branches. I'm going to change the remote to main. Local is main. I'm also going to select force. I'm also going to select the force checkbox and then select OK. TortoiseGit is now pushing this project up to my Azure DevOps server. And if I refresh the Azure DevOps server, you will see that the project is there, including a git ignore, which contains a few files that are typically not saved to source control. You can add to this list or subtract from this list as desired, as well as add additional files here. But this is the Veterans Outreach project, and there's only one branch, a main branch. I can now control this and make changes to this project, add additional branches, both through Azure DevOps or through TestComplete. So I need to establish an agent and an agent pool for the project that I want to use in Azure. So I'm in my Veteran Outreach project, but I'm going to go to Project Settings here at the base, and I'm selecting Agent Pools. And you can see I have several agent pools. I'm going to create a new one. We're going to call this agent pool. Well, first we're going to select it as a self-hosted pool, and the name will be Veteran Pool. Okay, I can give it a description if I like. And I'll grant access permissions to all pipelines. That may not be necessary, but won't hurt. So in any event, I've gone to the pool. You can see I don't have any agents in here. I select new agents, and you can see at this point, I can download the agent, and it gives me instructions here for creating the agent and so forth. I'm going to download the agent and create a directory called agent and download the agent files there. As shown here, all the instructions are relevant to setting up the agent. You can see that basically you create the agent, you configure the agent, and then we're going to run the agent interactively as shown here. It's fairly straightforward. First, of course, you download the agent, and as you can see, it's downloading. I'll return to the video after the download is done, and I've extracted the files to the new directory called agent that I'm going to place on my machine. So as you can see, I'm starting to extract the compressed files from the agent that I downloaded, and I'm going to extract them to C:\agent. Okay, so my agent has been downloaded and extracted to C:\agent. I'm going to go to a PowerShell window that I've opened in administrator mode in that directory, and I'm going to run the rest of the commands that are shown here in the agent configuration. Okay. So to configure the agent, I need to press /config.command, hit enter, and it's asking me for the server URL. So what I need to do is I'm going to close that window that I have in the background, going to my Azure DevOps URL. what it's looking for is my name, or basically, in this case, URL to the Azure server. And I have that in my paste buffer. I'm going to paste that there. And now it's asking me for authentication type. It's looking for a PAT, personal access token. I'm actually going to have to generate one. So let's go back to Azure DevOps. And if you go over here to Azure DevOps, you go to user settings, you'll see the personal access tokens. I have several, but in this case, I'm going to create a token for this particular machine. And we'll call it local laptop. I'm going to give it full access. And the expiration is not 30. I'm going to set a custom expiration much further out. Presumably I'll want to do this for a long time. So I'm going to set this for December of this year. And we'll say create. Okay. It does give you a warning that you'll lose the token if you don't save it at this point. I'm going to copy it to my clipboard. Just make sure that you're careful. It's much easier if you hold on to this token. So in any event, I have the token in my paste buffer. I'm going to return over here to my PowerShell window and paste that token. And it says register the agent and which agent pool I want to register it to. So in this case, I'm going to register it to the veteran pool, which I created earlier. And I'm going to let it default to the agent name is the same as what they've given me here. So it's asking me to enter a work folder. I'm going to let that default. I'm not going to run the agent as a service, so I'm going to also accept that default. And I'm not going to set it up to auto login. You may choose to do so, but for now, I'm going to do it without that. So in any event, that created the agent. Now I'm going to run the agent. Issuing the run command. And now the agent is listening for jobs. Going back to my Azure DevOps screen, you'll see that the local laptop is there and active. If I return to my Azure DevOps Veteran Outreach project and return to my project settings, agent pools, you'll see my veteran pool. Go to the agents. This newly added agent is here and it's currently enabled and active. So I'm all set to do our final step, which is to create a pipeline and run it on this machine. So for this third and final component of creating a TestComplete Azure test pipeline, I'm going to open up the Veteran Outreach project, select Pipeline from the left panel, select the wizard for Create Pipeline, and then on this window, I'm going to select the hyperlink for Use the Classic Editor. I just want to note that this is only one way of doing things. You may have other preferred ways, or your IT department may have other ideas of how you might want to do this, but for the time being, this is a very basic way of getting this set up. So Azure repo is all correct. I have only one repo with one branch. I'm going to select continue. And at this point, I'm selecting empty job. And the empty job is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot to say here. The agent specifications, I want to switch that. So instead of Azure Pipeline, I'm going to select Veteran Pool. Okay. And I'm going to take a moment to rename this to First Pipe. And then the get sources, nothing to change here. Life's good. And then agent job 1, Nothing fancy here. I'm just simply going to leave this as is as well. But what I need to do now is add 3 different tasks to this Azure pipeline. Now, the order is actually important when they execute, but to add them in, I'm simply going to find them, add them, and then reorder them afterwards. So what I've done is I found the Visual Studio Test platform installer. I'm adding that. And then that's usually the first step. The second step would usually be, or the second step would be TestComplete, but in this case, I'm going to add the Visual Studio Test. Again, normally the third step. When I search at the top of the window, I'm going to find TestComplete task. And you can see that I have enabled support for TestComplete test. The TestComplete test adapter has actually been installed. You may find that it hasn't in your environment. Check with your DevOps folks, or if you have admin rights, you might be able to add it yourself. So when I click add, that puts the item as the third item in my list. I'm going to move that to the center. Okay, so basically this job pulls from source control, executes this install of the Visual Studio Test platform, then performs work with the test complete adapter. Now I don't need to make any changes to the platform installer. That's fine as is. I am going to change the the access key to a valid value. In order to get that, I need to go to my TestComplete licensing. Very simple way to get the licensing is to go into TestComplete, select the profile, navigate to Manage License. That will open up SLM. And when you have SLM loaded, you'll see that I have multiple products. You may only have one or multiple, but regardless, at the top, there's a profile icon. I select the profile icon and select settings. And the setting shows an access key. Okay, I can copy that access key to my paste buff and switch back to my Azure DevOps window and drop that into the access key. All right, so everything else is good. There are other options here, but again, we're just going to go through one fairly simple one. I already have test execute installed. These other options here are about installing the test execute if it's not there, but in this case it is, so no need for that. In any event, I'm going to save all logs or all tests just for grins. There are 2 different ways that we can look at different things in the TestComplete suite. We can look at the execution plan, or we can look among project items. In this case, I'm simply going to leave it in the execution plan. There are other parameters here, but I'm going to leave these to default to what they are. And now let's look at the VS test. This is where it gets a little gnarly. So in any event, the test files, I'm going to do asterisk, asterisk, backslash, and we need to get the actual project suite name. So the simple way to get the project suite name is to right-click on my project in TestComplete and show and explore. And that will bring me to the root directory of the project. I can grab the project name. I'm going to grab the project name including PJS into my paste buffer, switch back to my browser, and paste in the project suite name. Everything else looks good. I could also set the filter criteria. So I'm going to switch back to this. And in this case, I'm going to say the project is actually going to use the rehab services project. I'm going to hit F2 to highlight that field, return back to my TestComplete window and say, or project, my VS test assemblies window. Project equals, and the name of the project that I want it to run. Now, there are many other filter criteria. You can find more information on this looking through the TestComplete documentation as well as Microsoft documentation. In any event, kind of important, you're going to likely want to either have multiple pipelines or run subsets of things in different pipelines. So this filtering criteria is kind of critical. In any event, I'm going to leave everything else here except the test platform latest. Let's take a quick peek. Instead of latest, we're going to say installed by tools installer, because the test platform is being installed by the first step here, which is the Visual Studio Test Platform installer. Okay, the rest of the items we're going to leave as default, and now we're simply going to save and queue this job and see what happens. With any luck, it'll start to execute TestComplete or test execute. And in this case, you can see the save command or comment. I'm going to say initial attempt. And I'll say save and run. And you can see I have an agent job. Let's take a look at what's going on with the agent job. So in the agent job, it's showing that the agent's beginning to run. Let's take a quick peek. I believe I have a window with, okay, as you can see, the agent job is running currently, so it should momentarily start test execute on this machine. Returning to my Azure DevOps window, you can see that it's performed the first few steps, and right now it's doing the test. It completed the test adapter install, and now it's doing the VS test assemblies, which is our home stretch last piece. Okay, and as you can see, it's looking for test to run. Let's see if it finds any. And as you can see, there's a progress indicator now showing test complete or test execute running. And it's currently running the rehab services project test templates, very simple test. I'm simply going to let this continue to run. I'll be silent for a couple minutes, but we'll probably pause it and let this run to end of job because it might take 20-30 minutes. I just want to let you see a couple of tests on this. So it's run through a couple of tests fairly quickly. But again, I expect this will take longer since it's running the entire execution plan. We'll return when the test has completed. At this point, the pipeline has completed. You can see the first pipe email showing here. I can view the results by clicking through on the email, or if I open the veteran outreach pipeline, you can see I have my first pipe here. And the first run and only run at this point. If I drill into this, you can see that it shows a 55% pass rate. If I click on this hyperlink, you can see the small chart and the different files, test routines that were run, and the details. And that's typically how a Azure DevOps pipeline is put together. Again, you can experiment with variations on the search criteria, and happy automation.